Well, welcome back to Living Happy Every Day with Dr. LaSharnda. Glad you decided to join me again today. It's time for us to finish this series up with step number 5, and that's positive encouragement. Positive encouragement really begins with you. It's all about you encouraging yourself. Don't sit around and wait for others to give you the encouragement that you need as you try to pursue your hopes and dreams, as you go after your goals. Whether those goals are those nutrition goals that we talked about, or it's business or personal goals, whatever they are, make sure that you understand the importance of encouraging yourself. And I want to point out one other thing as we talk about this very last step in my 5 steps for you to be able to live a happy life, and that is that you have to be able to do those first 4 in order for you to get to the point of encouraging yourself. Remember, I said that positive encouragement all begins with you. So the first thing we're going to talk about as we talk about positive encouragement today is this, and that is that you have to be able to understand the importance of speaking words of life to yourself. You have to understand the importance of affirmations. And sometimes people will think that that's the weirdest thing and that you shouldn't be doing that. I don't know. There's a multitude of things that you hear people say about talking to yourself, that you're crazy, that maybe you're a little bit nuts because you're talking to yourself. But I say that it's real important that you speak words of life over yourself. Last week, I talked to you about the importance of speaking life over yourself and your family and those people that you care about. When we talk about positive encouragement, sometimes when you've just done all that you can and you just feel that you've hit a wall, you've come to an obstacle that seems to be just overwhelming and that you can't go any further, that's when it's time for you to pick yourself up and it's time for you to encourage yourself. Self-talk, as I've mentioned before, is so important. Self-talk is where you are saying to yourself how special you are, how unique you are, and just how capable you are of achieving your hopes and dreams. And sometimes when we do that, I think we've been led to believe that we're kind of arrogant or we're kind of nutty because we're doing those type things, but that couldn't be further from the truth. You have to do those things. Sometimes if you sit back and you wait for people to encourage you, you can be sitting and waiting a very, very long time. So even the Bible talks about the importance of, you being able to change your life by changing the way you think. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do today. Change your thinking. As a man thinks, so is he. So it all begins in your mind. Everything begins in your mind. And what a man thinks, that's what he is. And what I'm going to say about that is that if you don't think that you're valuable, if you don't think that you're worthy, if you don't think that you have the skills and abilities to do the things that you want to do, to achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself, if you don't believe that, it's hard for you to encourage yourself. So that's why I encourage you to start to encourage yourself. On my weekly radio talk show, one thing that I do every week on Saturday, and that's Living Happy Every Day with Dr. LaSharnda also. But one thing that I get compliments on all the time, and that is that weekly affirmation. And that weekly affirmation is how I kick off the show. And it goes something like this, and I know you've heard me say this before, and this is where it comes from. It comes from the show. And it says, I have you say, I am special, I am unique, and I am fully capable of achieving the things that God has placed in my heart to do. I may have been scared in the past, but I'm not anymore because I'm learning how to overcome my fears. I'm facing those head on. I will win. I am destined for greatness. And I know the reason it's hard for people to do those and the reason I force you to do them is because a lot of times you don't have the courage or the confidence to say those good things about yourself. And the reason self-talk is so important and that weekly affirmation is so important It's because you need to start to hear that about yourself, that positive comment about yourself every day. You should look in the mirror every morning and say something great about yourself. Don't sit back and wait for others to do that for you. If you listen to your surroundings, and when I say listen to your surroundings, I'm talking about some of the things that's not even said. What we do is we watch people's body language. We watch their lack of not saying something. We watch what they say too. And a lot of the times, our interpretation of what people say or don't say typically defaults to negatives. And so you got to start to train your mind to default to positives. And that's why I say it's important to be intentional about the things that you take in, about the people that you hang around, about the words that you speak. So positive encouragement really is about you. It's about you encouraging yourself, because every day, anytime, it's easy for us to have self-doubt. Self-doubt creeps in, self-doubt overtakes the so-called confidence that we have, because we wonder if we're good enough. We wonder if we have the abilities to do what we've set out to do. And when we hit a brick wall, we really wonder whether or not we can. And I say, yeah, you can. You can. You can. And you can rerun my tapes, or you can go to my website and you can see all types of positive affirmations that you can say to yourself, or you can listen to me weekly and you can hear those positive affirmations that I ask you to repeat to yourself. But I'm going to encourage you today is to start to say them about yourself on your own. Start to understand the power of encouragement. You know, positive encouragement ties to something I call, and I mentioned this last week, and that was the law of attraction. Back in 1990s, it was like the middle of 1990s, I remember that I used to see this car. It was a Jaguar S-Type. And I just fell in love with this car. And I just thought that this car was the prettiest car I'd ever seen. And how does this tie to this thing about positive encouragement or the law of attraction? It ties like this. A lot of the times what happens is we automatically say things over our lives such as, I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't have the education, I don't have the money, I don't have the skills to do certain things. And so before long, we really believe that. In addition, we listen to or we watch other people's attitudes when we say we're trying to accomplish certain things. People will say or not say, and that when they don't say it to you, it's interpreted as a lack of support, that you can't accomplish certain things or that you can't afford certain things. And before long, you start saying those things yourself. So that's the type of self-talk you give yourself, that you can't do something or that you can't afford something. But let's go back to my story about that S-Type. I saw that car and I knew that that car was for me. And back then, could I afford it? Maybe not, but I'm so into believing that I can achieve anything that I set myself out to achieve that I just didn't buy that. Now, maybe I couldn't afford it in 1997, but in 2004, I was driving that car. And I'll never forget that we left the U.S. and we moved to Germany. And that same car was in the parking lot where I worked every day. And I used to just kind of, I guess you can call covet. I know you don't want to hear it, but I used to covet that car. I lust after that car. And so by the time I got back to the United States, you know, that car was still on my mind, but it wasn't like I was obsessing about it all the time. But let me just show you how the law of attraction works. You really have to start to visualize, and I talk about, you know, doing these visualization boards. And what these are is where you put things on this board about things that you want in life, whether it's a certain size that you want to be, whether it's a certain house that you want to have, a job, whatever it is. So you put these things on your vision board. And so the point of the vision board is that you're looking at it and you're thinking about it, and before long, you'll start to plot out ways of achieving those things. You will craft out action plans, goals that will help you reach those things. But in 2004, I was driving that car. I believe in the law of attraction because something inside of me said, you can get it, LaSharnda, you can do it, you can. And so all those years, I kept believing that I could, and I figured out a way to get that car. So in 2004, I was driving that Jaguar S-Type. And then again in 2006, I had my second one. And that's the type of thing that I'm talking about, where people may say to you, or even family that love you, they may say, you know, we can't afford that. And I say, yeah, you can. You just have to figure it out. You may not be able to afford it today, but speak into existence the things that you want. And then go for those things. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. When I was working on my doctorate, I had no idea how I was going to be able to afford that education. A lot had gone on, and I used to be praying about, oh, I really want to get a doctorate. I really want to get this and that. And I could not figure out how I was going to be able to afford it. But before long, things just happened to fall into place, and I was able to go about achieving that dream, that goal too. And I'm not just saying it for me. I've seen it happen in the life of my family, and I've seen it happen in the lives of my friends and people that really understand this concept, the law of attraction. And let me show you how the law of attraction ties to positive encouragement, tip number 5. You cannot give up on how you see things. You can't give up on what you believe. You can't give up on your dreams. And so there will be times throughout anything that you're pursuing, whether it's education, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, whatever it is, we will all encounter bumps and bruises. Positive encouragement says that when we encounter those, that we encourage ourselves to move beyond them in spite of what's going on, in spite of what we see. Faith is believing that it can happen, whether you see it or not. And so that's how the law of attraction ties to positive encouragement. Whether I see it happening or not, I'm still going to hold on to the belief that it can. But I'm not just going to sit and believe and just have faith. I'm going to have to do things to make it happen. I have been planning and organizing and gathering data and doing all kinds of stuff to make another dream of mine come true. And you know what? It hasn't come to the point where I need it to yet, but it's only a matter of time because I haven't given up on it. And I've been working on this particular dream since 2005. And I believe that it'll happen. Just like anything else in my life, it'll happen. Because those other things, I look at my past and I see that the things that was in my past that, seemed impossible, they worked out too. So when people say to me or imply, or they're the naysayers, and I've talked to you about naysayers. They're the ones that tell you all the reasons why you can't accomplish something. They're the ones that will tell you all of the reasons why you're not good enough or imply why you're not good enough. Those are the people, and even your mind will say to you why you can't do something, that you're not good enough, that you don't have the right connections. And I say to you, make the connections. I say that you are good enough, that you are valuable, but you got to start to believe that on your own. And that brings me to this step here. I talked about the importance of positive reflection. That's your time that you set aside in the morning. That's the time when you are connecting with your inner self, with that spiritual part of you. That's the time for you to reflect on positives about yourself. Don't sit there and start to think about all of the wrong that you've done in the world and all of the things that are against you. Don't do that. It's time for you to focus on what's right with you. Make it your intention to focus on what's right with you. So that positive reflection time for me is when I sit and I pray, I meditate, and I read my Bible. That's point number 2, and that is positive reinforcement. Stop reading junk. Stop taking in junk into your brain. That's the only way you're going to get to step 5. Positive reinforcement, step number 2, is to take in positive information, whether that for me is the Bible or for you it could be something else. But make sure that you're feeding your mind, because it all starts with how you think. It all starts with how you think. So if you don't see yourself well, you're not going to behave well. And I don't mean badly. It's just that you may not embrace the things that you need to embrace in order for you to accomplish your hopes and dreams. So positive reinforcement is for you to take that time to reinforce that private time that you just had. It's time for you to reinforce it. Feed your mind with something that's positive. And then I talked to you about step 3, and that was positive nutrition and the importance of not only feeding your mind, but feeding your physical body so that you feel good about yourself, so that you're physically fit. And when we feel good about ourselves and when we feel good in ourselves, it's easier for us to think and behave positively. A lot of times when we're not feeling well, we get down and out and we just feel like, you know, the whole world's against us. It's easy for us to take in negatives when we're not feeling well. That's when you have to be intentional about how you're going to think and how you're going to react to situations that you face. A lot of times when our immune system's down, when we're not feeling well, we react quickly negatively too. So be aware of those types of things that how we can react, how we don't do the things we need to do when we're not feeling good. And then I talked to you a little bit about number 4, and that's positive energy. Positive energy comes about when, you know, you've done all of those other things, and it's about what you send out. That's what you're going to get back. We talked about that too when we talked about law of attraction, but what we send out to the universe, what we send out into our environment, that's what's going to come back to us. So if we're negative people, if we're people that see the worst in everything, if we're naysayers, now it's easy to see other naysayers, but it's not so easy to see the naysayer in yourself. You've heard people say when they get angry,